Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 5 o'clock. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your attendance here this evening. I'm Deputy Mayor Adam Pearson, and I will be chairing this public meeting tonight. I'm joined by staff and members of council. Before we begin, I would like to inform everyone that assisted listening devices are available for anyone who may need one during tonight's meeting. Just please see the Deputy Clerk. Deputy Clerk over here, and we can help you sign one up and get you all set up there. We kindly ask that all the devices be returned at the end of the meeting before you leave, so that we can be collected and made available for future use. Thank you. I'd like to begin this meeting with a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Moving on to our land acknowledgement. The municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga and Nishnawbek traditional territories covered by the Williams Treaty. We honor and recognize First People as rights holders and stewards of the lands and the waters in which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those that make their home here in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to declarations of pecuniary interests. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest from members of council tonight? Seeing none. All right, moving on. We are here tonight for a public meeting that is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The public meeting is a prescribed requirement under the Act and represents only one component of the planning and development process. Please note that no decisions will be made at tonight's meeting. The format of tonight's meeting is as follows. First, the applicant or the representative will provide an overview of the application and the policy framework review. Then, municipal staff will provide an overview of the technical review and public consultation. Council members may ask questions of staff or provide comments at this time. Finally, members of the public who wish to provide input will be able to do so by coming up to the podium. Alternatively, you can also provide input via written submission at planning@porthope.ca. Please note that as chair, I may call upon the applicant or staff to provide clarification on matters raised by the members of the public. I would like to note that there are sign-in sheets right over by the doorway. If you want to be notified when a notice of decision is issued, please ensure that you fill out the sign-in sheets with your information. Okay, moving on to our public meeting. It is now time to commence our public meeting for this evening. The application is regarding an amendment to the official plan and the zoning bylaw 2010 under section 22(1) and section 34(10.4) of the Planning Act, submitted by RFA Planning Consultants Inc. on behalf of the owner 2020910 Ontario Limited for vacant lands south of Croft Street within the urban area of the municipality of Port Hope, file number OP01-2026 and ZB01-2026. I would like to note that council members are not here tonight to express their opinions for or against the proposed changes. The time for that will come when the matter is brought before consideration at a future meeting with the Committee of the Whole. Moving on to 4.1, presentation by the applicant. I'm going to ask the applicant to please come up to the podium and make their presentation.
Good evening. My name is Sean Legere. I'm Principal Planner with RFE Planning Consultant, and the agent for these applications. I was retained in 2024 to pursue planning approvals for the proposed development of the lands on the south side of Croft Street. With me here this evening is the owner of the property, Al LeBlanc. In my presentation, I will review the site context, details of the proposed development, along with findings of the required technical studies, and summarize the subject official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications, along with a planning overview for your consideration this evening. It is understood this is a public meeting through the chair, only to receive comments, and that staff will be bringing the applications forward and making a recommendation to council at a next available meeting. On this note, technical review comments have been received, which we are currently working through. Also, on Friday just passed and yesterday and today, we have been receiving public comments, which we are also, the review is ongoing through, which we received through Port Host staff. Upon review of these comments, I appreciate my presentation this evening is hoped to address the majority of those comments. For those of you not familiar with the site, it is located in the northeastern extent of the urban serviced area of Port Hope, encompassed within a major intensification area that extends to Wellington Street to the west, and is essentially the only vacant property within the major intensification area that has not yet been developed. Its official plan designation is medium density residential and is currently within the low density residential 1 holding zone. Uses surrounding the site are medium density residential to the north. We have Trinity College to the south. We have Beatrice Strong School and, forgive my pronunciation, Ladika Park to the east. And we have some low-rise residential and commercial uses to the west, along with some vacant lands to the north. The site's area is approximately 1.9 hectares with 226 meters of frontage on the south side of Croft Street. A number of plans and reports have been prepared in support of the subject applications that I will summarize in a moment. First, I wish to describe the site plan, which will consist of one contiguous apartment building with 2 6-story towers attached by a central bungalow common lobby. A total of 108 dwelling units are proposed under condominium tenure. The proposed development will have a residential density of 59 dwelling units per net hectare, which is within the allowable maximum of the current medium density residential designation. The site will function on 3 access points. 2 will function largely as ingress and egress to the underground parking on each end of the building, with the central largely functioning as visitor and delivery drop-off and for emergency services to the main building entrance. The majority of the 158 parking spaces will be provided underground. The remainder will be surface spaces where they will be shielded by a low decorative wall fence. The proposed development will be serviced by municipal water and sewage. The plan also provides adequate space for garbage collection within, which will be stored in interior garbage rooms adjacent to the loading areas. Bins will be brought out, with this, bins will be brought out to the loading areas and collected on the day that's selected by a private contractor. A total of 116 square meters of programmed exterior amenity space per unit will be provided, and a total of 78% of the site will be landscaped area. Lastly, dedicated pedestrian walkways are provided to connect building access to the public sidewalk network. Pre-consultation with Port Hope was completed in October of 2024. Since then, the owner has been working diligently to complete all required studies, supporting studies and planning for the planning approvals in order to permit the proposed development plan. From October 2024 to present and to January 2026 specifically, site and architectural plans have been prepared along with civil engineering plans. A planning justification along with functional servicing, stormwater management, traffic impact, environmental impact, archaeological assessment reports have also been prepared, together with environmental site assessments and geotechnical investigations that were previously prepared at the time the developer obtained approvals for the project on the north side of Croft Street. With these official plan amendment and rezoning applications were filed in January of 2026 and deemed complete later on March 6th. I would like now to take a moment to summarize the technical studies prepared in support of the proposed development. Regarding servicing, a functional servicing brief has been prepared by Jewel Engineering to confirm feasibility with adding 108 dwelling units and accessory uses. With respect to water servicing, Jewel confirms the 200 millimeter water main is currently available along Croft Street to the development property, and a 150 millimeter stub is already in place. This will adequately, the placement has already been determined and adequately services development to be installed, which the Croft Street will be finished as part of the development approvals. Jewel confirms also that under peak hour conditions, the proposed development will operate within Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks recommended pressures, and that the building will be sprinklered to provide adequate fire protection. With this, adequate water pressure and capacity are available to service the proposed development. With respect to sanitary servicing, Jewel confirms a 200 millimeter sanitary sewer at a minimum slope of 0.4% will be adequate to provide sanitary conveyance. Jewel also confirms the downstream sewer capacity on Croft Street has sufficient capacity to accommodate the proposed development to the trunk sewer on Rose Glen North. In conclusion, servicing the proposed development has been confirmed to be feasible. Regarding stormwater, a preliminary stormwater management report has been completed also by Jewel Engineering to confirm compliance with applicable Conservation Authority and provincial stormwater management criteria, as there will be an increase in imperviousness with the proposed development. With respect to quantity control, Jewel reviewed the wet pond and revised configuration and determined it can accommodate the increase in rainfall with current intensity, duration, frequency curves. They also confirmed the flow control targets set in the 2007 West Gage Creek Master Drainage Plan with increased rainfall depth values can be met, which were further tested with standard pre to post objectives. With respect to quality control, Jewel confirms the revised wet pond meets the required objectives by removing greater than 80% total suspended solids, loading from the site and Croft Street condominium to the north. In summary, Jewel confirms that stormwater quantity and quantity controls are in accordance with MECP and Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority standards. Due to the introduction of 108 dwelling units, a traffic impact study has been completed, also by Jewel Engineering, in support of the proposed development. Jewel analyzed surrounding neighborhood transportation context, traffic conditions, trip distribution, traffic volumes, intersection improvements, and overall transportation demand management. 54 to 64 two-way vehicle trips during the AM and PM peak hours are estimated. For clarity, access to the subject site will be provided by an extension of Croft Street. Based on their level of service and vehicle queuing analysis, Jewel forecasts to 2038, site access points and nearby intersections are expected to operate acceptably. In all, Jewel concludes that all movements to and from the site will continue to provide good levels of service and that no further improvements are required. Regarding natural heritage, an environmental impact study has been completed by Cambium Inc. Their findings can be summarized in three main categories. With respect to surface water, 2 empirical watercourses are located on site, however, are poorly defined, lack of permanent flow, and provide limited habitat function and may be rechannelized. For clarity, no fish habitat has been identified on site. With respect to wetlands, the mapped unevaluated wetlands were found not to meet established criteria, with the exception of a small wetland on the southeast corner of the site. For clarity, no provincially significant wetlands are present on site. With respect to species at risk, wildlife habitat on site supports primarily 4 common species. Chimney swift, a species of special concern, were observed foraging in the area, but however, no suitable nesting habitat was found on site, or to exist on site. 2 butternut trees, which are endangered, have been identified along the western edge of the site that will be avoided through the required setbacks. So on this slide, I specifically put the wording so you could see both of those wetland and butternut features and the setbacks. Just to wrap up. So based on their findings, KMM recommends avoidance measures, mitigation strategies, and best management practices to ensure no negative impacts to natural heritage features or their ecological functions. Regarding cultural resources, Phase 1 and 2 archaeological assessments have been completed by Ironstone Archaeology. The trigger for the Phase 1 assessment is the proximity to water resources within 300 meters of the site. A Stage 2 archaeological assessment was recommended based on the findings of the Phase 1 assessment. From their Stage 2 fieldwork of appropriate areas of the site, Ironstone did not find or document archaeological resources and confirmed that no further archaeological assessment of the study area is required. With respect to the requested official plan amendment, the proposed 6-story apartment building is not considered low-rise and is not permitted within the current medium-density residential designation. The primary reason for the proposed height is that key drainage and natural heritage features are preventing more fulsome use of the property, necessitating a compression of the floor plate. Given the proposed 59 dwelling units per net hectare remains within the allowable maximum for the medium-density residential designation of 60, the requested high-density residential designation is deemed appropriate. Moving now to the requested site-specific zone provisions for the proposed development, being 2-meter planting strip, 8-meter driveway width, and the number of driveways increased from 2 to 3, and to locate loading areas in the front yard, together with the permitted apartment dwelling itself. Lastly, as seen on this chart, all other high-density residential zone provisions are either met or exceeded, and deemed appropriate due to the proposed landscaping wall, building setbacks, and provision for emergency services. This said, I wish to wind down my presentation by focusing on the urban design principles proposed for the development that will contribute to a positive image for the municipality of Port Hope and will represent good urban design. To reiterate, the majority of parking will be underground and garbage collection will be within the building. There is also an intentional variety of materials, colors, and facade and roofline articulation used to help create horizontal and vertical building definition to define building definition. These will contribute to high-quality urban design streetscape along Croft Street. Height is considered compatible with adjacent buildings due to the expansive separation with surrounding uses to the east, west, and south, combined with extensive open space immediately adjacent. The building is similar in scale to institutional uses that are in close proximity to the site, which I mentioned earlier in my presentation, and will also be sufficiently set back from Croft Street to ensure a pedestrian-oriented experience. Lastly, a generous amount of window openings will maintain sightlines between public and private realms, including balconies, to facilitate eyes on the street. In summary, the proposed development requests for driveways, loading areas, and planting strips are deemed appropriate, and that it represents vacant lot intensification within a built-up urban serviced area within a major intensification area. The proposed development is generally in keeping with the scale and character of the surrounding context and will contribute to high-quality urban design and streetscape along Croft Street, as well as a positive image for Port Hope. It's important to note that the proposed underground parking allows for enhanced landscaping areas and amenity space, and that the parking requirements themselves are exceeded while providing extensive landscaping of 78% of the site. The proposed development allows for an increase in the diversity of the housing stock in Port Hope and promotes the creation of a complete walkable community, and that feasibility has been confirmed through technical studies prepared by qualified professionals. Lastly, we have concluded the proposed development is consistent with the provincial planning statement, generally conforms to the County of Northumberland and Port Hope official plans, policies, and represents good planning. This concludes my presentation. I am available and will do my best to help answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I'm going to open it up to council now for any questions for council. Council Mink.
Thank you. So through the chair, I have a couple questions for you. Thank you for your presentation. My first question is regarding the site plan, and I appreciate the back of it with an open space. I think it'll align well with the park space in that area. But for fire access, is it not required that fire engines must be able to go all the way around the building from the outside?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's a requirement to have clear access to the building. So that has been provided. So trucks can come fully into the site to the main entrance, which is typically the main requirement, that trucks have to be within 90 meters of a fire hydrant and 90 meters to the main entrance. 45 and 45, 90 meters total. So because the fire trucks can pull right up to the front door and connect, that's the primary objective. And so that has been met with the design.
Okay.
Yeah, if that was a requirement, then we would have had a ring around the entire building. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And as far as the design goes, it looks great. I love the design. It says that it's 6 stories. So is that roof considered one of the stories that people could have apartments in? The black roof looks like that's the 6th story.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I don't know who's controlling the tech in the room. If we can return back to the presentation, that may be helpful. And so we can just pause for a moment and just clarify. Yeah. Perfect. Oh. Can I just go back? Nope. My presentation? Yes, please. Yeah. Maybe you already have it in your agenda packages in front of you. I don't know if anybody's printed it, but. While we're waiting for that, I'll just quickly answer your question through the chair. The answer is that the 6th story does include, it's easiest to show you, but the 6th story does include, on the renderings, it looks sort of like a dark charcoal color, being the roof. Here we go. Perfect. Even the front page is perfect. Great. So you just count up, and so that 6th story does include sort of what would be that black area at the top. So that is the 6th story. Yeah. So here you can just nicely just count up. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the roof line. Yeah. So you can see there's windows and dormers up there. So that is the 6th. Yeah.
Sorry, and just one other question. So
Yes, sorry, follow up.
the other, so the 108 dwellings, what is the breakdown between studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom? Do you have that information yet?
I can quickly check the floor plans, which I do have with me. So I can, if I pause and come back, I can clarify in a moment. But there'll be a variety of bedroom sizings. Yeah.
Thank you. Mayor Hankiewski.
Thank you very much for the presentation and for the information. Beautiful design. Obviously, there was a lot of care taken into how this is going to fit into the heritage of Port Hope. So we always appreciate that. My question was also around some of the unit sizes and whether or not those are set in stone, if that's still fluid, or if you're imagining a particular kind of clientele for the building overall. So maybe it's just pushing that question a little bit further in terms of who you're imagining for the building itself. And secondly, maybe this is a bit related. Can you tell us a little bit more about the rationale for having the cafe space within the building, and on-off, are you imagining that cafe space to be operating just during business hours? Is there an opportunity for that space to become other things during the evenings or weekends, for example? So just really curious about that, because that's a fairly unique feature. And then just a final question. You said that the parking exceeded the requirements. Does that mean that you're also designating visitor parking within the underground parking?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so I'll just work from the bottom up. So with respect to parking, so there'll be surface parking spaces. Most of them will be underground, but the surface spaces are essentially to be available for visitors to the building. I believe with respect to the market, the sense of what's being marketed towards, I'll have to defer that until I speak with my client. And this is reflecting with the number of bedroom sizes and whatnot. All I can confirm is that it's intended to be a condominium tenure. So that's what I do know. You had another question. I'm so sorry. Through you, Mr. Chair. The cafe. Thank you. So with respect to the cafe, I mean, essentially it's one of those accessory uses that it's intended for the majority of the users to be from the building itself. So there's that synergy there. So it's sort of an additional common space. There'll be, I can provide additional clarity on that once I confer with my client. So I apologize for sort of partially deferring the answer to that question. But that's sort of one of the main intent with those kinds of things, that it's other, I'm not speaking specifically to this, but to other examples of this kind of thing where you have, like a hair salon or something like that. Like, it's largely going to be the users from the building, although some members of the public may proceed. So with respect to hours of operation, I mean, these kinds of things are typically, just daytime hours. So it would be up to, in terms of the building size, I think it was another follow-up question, is technically fluid at the moment up until the building permit stage, when the building plans are absolutely set and the building permit is in hand. So there is some flexibility in to how the numbers of units and the bedrooms are going to be arranged, and to the same with the common space as well. And if there's an operator yet, I think we're a bit ahead of that maybe with that question in terms of how is it going to be operated. Specifically if there's potential for after hours uses, that kind of thing. So I'll have to partially defer the answer to that question. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Councillor Less.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for exceeding the capacity of parking in the building. It's much needed and will be needed in the future. Has there been any consideration or investigation into the potential changes to Rose Glen Road, excuse me, because of the 401 reconstruction? Did you figure that into your equation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have confirmed that project does not impact the proposed development. On one of the preferred solutions for the 401 widening, I believe there was 2 that were selected for this area. The one is completely off-site. It completely avoids this area. And the one that's probably you're referring to, it does show on that schedule I noted that there's a sort of a matching line. It says matching or something similar to that. And this site is actually on the other side of that line. So there is a line in the sand and we're on the other side. I believe there is some minor alignment changes to Rose Glen and Croft Street with this preferred solution with the roundabout, but those aspects do not impact this project.
Councillor Clare.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on a couple of the variances that are being asked for. One is with the planting, what's it called? Now I'm losing the term. The planting Strip, there we go. So on one hand, you're asking for a slight reduction by about half of what's currently required for the planting strip. And on the other hand, you're asking for more width allowed for the driveway. And I'm wondering if those two are related. And so is the expanded driveway in and out of the parking lot to facilitate two-way traffic? And would there be a potential to consider a one-way traffic flow in and out of the parking lot in order to gain back the space for that additional planting strip?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they are not connected. The building is set back far, and so the architect selected this sort of low decorative wall to shield the parking. And so that's the main function into, it would be easy if I could point to the plan, but so that's the purpose for the reduction to the planting strips. So we're sort of replacing half of it with a decorative wall, and that the building is set back. It's all to do with functionality of the site. And not connected, but for the same reason, the functionality of the driveway is the same. So we want to be able to make sure there's generous space for ingress and egress. However, the width of the driveways themselves, we'll take a closer look at that, though. I think that might be something we can take a closer look at. And it is a matter of site plan approval, but because there's connected to the zoning amendment here, that we can take a closer look at that, actually. So that's that. But the planting strip is related to this actual function of the parking areas and the turnarounds and everything, and ingress and egress, emergency services. But making sure, because again, related to the other items with the OPA application, we're a little compressed because of the natural heritage features on the site. And so there's no sort of density issues. However, because of there's legitimate constraints on the property, we're sort of compressed a little bit. So we had to sort of pull and squeeze in a couple of little spots to make it all work. But the driveway width, I've written that down. We'll take a look at that.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councillor Mink.
So through the chair, you mentioned the two butternut trees to be protected, but the lot also has a significant woodlot on it. Will all trees be cut down, or will there be some attempts to keep some of that forest canopy?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think essentially the butternuts will be protected, so that's set. In terms of the basically behind the building, can remain in its naturalized state. So if it'd be great to pull up the plan. Sometimes I wish to flip back and forth between things, but it's easy to show you. But essentially behind the building can remain in its naturalized state. That's essentially why the building's up at the road and as it is, because we had to rechannelize the drainage in the area. There's the wetland. So there are reasons why the design is the design. And I've reviewed the environmental impact study. It's not my understanding that the tree coverage on the property is part of a significant woodland. So there are different considerations if it is considered a significant woodland, but it's not my understanding that is classified as a significant woodland. It's just tree canopy, in which case approximately half the site will remain in its naturalized state. So solid canopy will be covered, and the EIS did confirm all the aspects about species at risk, which I did cover in my presentation. So there's some common species that do use the property, but there's no species at risk that use the property. So that's sort of the key distinction about what's significant, what's not. Are there endangered or significant wildlife issues? And we have not found any.
Thank you. Yeah, so my use of the term significant was just that there's plentiful. Could we bring that up? And it's on page five or six, I think, just so those here can see that. Okay.
Yeah, maybe one of the earlier slides where we can see an aerial. Yeah. Well, here you can see the plan. So essentially we have the formal programmed landscape space at the rear there. So there's some nice plantings and patio spaces that will be planted. So essentially at the rear and the west corner as well. So you can see there's sort of a triangular area. There's right at the top, you can see the cul-de-sac, and then there's basically a triangle on the west side of the building. So that and the whole south area should remain in its naturalized state. So that's a significant part of the property, and part of the reasons for some of these requests. So because we're compressed, so because of these environmental constraints, yeah. So hopefully that satisfies.
Yes, I just, there is a slide further on, though, that actually shows the actual trees in a satellite
Yeah, I
image.
think maybe earlier through the chair. Sorry.
Keep going. Yeah, there.
Ear may be a good one. Yeah, maybe this one. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. So, okay, so that bottom sort of triangle, every attempt will kind of be made to preserve some of that tree
There's
canopy?
no, yeah, it's through the chair, sorry, through the chair. There's no plan for anything back there and to the west as well. I do have to confirm, though, that, so on this image, right next to the 201B, you can see sort of a curvature and some extra lines there. That's the existing stormwater management facility. So there is a portion of this area that's actually already developed for stormwater management. So that's an active pond that's currently being used. And so basically it's everything between the pond and the building, and on the western corner should remain in its naturalized state. There's no need to go much into those areas for the proposal. So that's why we're sort of compressing things a bit to preserve the property. And 78% total of the property will be landscaped or open space. Yeah.
And so just a comment, so thank you for that. And the underground parking, I just want to highlight, it definitely helps protect some of that land, so that's great.
Through Mr. Chair, it absolutely helps immensely. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Any other questions from council? Nope, seeing none. So thank you for your presentation. And we will be moving on to 4.2, presentation by staff and staff report. So I'm going to ask the planning staff to please make their presentation and introduce their report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Mayor, members of council. I hope you're doing well this evening. As mentioned, tonight we're here discussing the official plan amendment file number OP01-2026 and zoning bylaw amendment ZB01-2026 that are affecting the vacant lands of the Croft Street within the urban area of Port Hope. My name is Ken Scullion. I'm a senior planner with the municipality. Starting out with the subject area, Sean gave a great overview of the subject property, but I find the satellite imagery gives a little bit more detail here. So we can see to the north of the subject property, there's the low-rise condominium complex that's address 300 Croft Street, nursing home, commercial uses, low-rise residential neighborhood, and high-density residential uses further north. To the east of the subject property, there's a stormwater management pond, Vladika Park, low-density residential neighborhoods, Beatrice Strong Public School, and various commercial uses exist. Further east, to the south, we have Trinity College School, and to the west, we have low-density residential neighborhoods and various commercial uses. Okay, so public consultation. As per the Planning Act, we did provide resident mailouts, and an on-site public notice sign was posted. Non-statutory tools included a notice on the municipal website, which also included all material submitted in support of the zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment applications. The notice of complete application and public meeting was issued on March 5th of 2026, and a site sign was posted on March 24th of 2026. So as part of the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment review, staff circulate all materials supporting the subject applications to staff and agencies for comment. The list we have here, not exhaustive, is just a high-level overview for a general idea of what the comments consisted of. All the comments in their entirety are attached to the staff report, which is attached, which is part of this evening's agenda. If anyone would like a hand getting a hold of those comments, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to provide them to you. So Alderville First Nation requests a consultation process. Parks, Recreation, and Culture had no objections, and parkland dedication was previously addressed through the site plan application for the condominium complex immediately north of the subject property. Works in Engineering has required a detailed design that will be reviewed at site plan approval stage, which includes the extension of Croft Street. CNL, or Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, has recommended monitoring of non-granular material for radiation. Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board has requested to review the stormwater pond at the site plan approval stage and has requested a sidewalk be part of the Croft Street extension. The Planning Department has requested further details on the site plan, including measurements for landscape buffers and garage door widths, as well as bicycle parking, just to confirm zoning compliance. We'd also like to see that the draft OPA and ZBA official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment includes site-specific provisions for the proposed restaurant use, as is defined in our zoning bylaw. And also, we will be requiring an arborist report in accordance with the municipality's tree bylaw. That would be done at site plan approval stage, so that would involve a qualified professional or arborist to come out and do an inventory of trees on the site, and that would be addressed through the bylaw accordingly. Northumberland County has requested an updated environmental site assessment or a letter which confirms that soil and or groundwater conditions have not changed at site plan approval stage in accordance with OREG 153-04, and private waste collection services are required for the proposed development. Gemtech Engineering did do a peer review of the geotechnical assessment, and further geotechnical work is required. It also recommends that a hydrogeological investigation be completed to support the proposed development. North-South Environmental did do a peer review of the submitted natural heritage evaluation, and they have outlined that they believe that significant woodlands may exist on the subject property in accordance with Northumberland County's official plan and Port Hope's official plan, just how they describe what significant woodlands are. Therefore, no negative impact would need to be a demonstration of no negative impact would need to be included in the in a resubmitted natural heritage evaluation. And there are also several comments requesting clarification and consistency on the technical considerations outlined within the natural heritage evaluation. In legal and legislative services, fire department, lexicon, Bell, and Ministry of Transportation have not provided comments to date. And before I move on to the next slide, I will state that we have received 5 pieces of correspondence from the public. They were received by Jan Stefoff, Donald Pritchard, Hugh Levin, Carol Deisenbach, Margaret Cavan Day, and Wilfred Day. So we received those pieces of correspondence after the report was, or staff report was published for these applications. So we weren't able to include those pieces of correspondence. There were several overarching themes of discussion within those pieces of correspondence, and that did include the incompatibility of architectural style and massing, traffic concerns including future 401 interchange updates and pedestrian safety, lack of infrastructure and public services to service the proposed development, density concerns, natural heritage concerns, noise and dust resulting from construction, as well as concerns on adequacy of public notification. So next steps. So through the planning process, the applicant will address all public and agency circulation comments. Staff will then prepare a recommendation report based on policy consistency and conformity and considers all comments received from the public. Recommendation report would then be reviewed at the committee of the whole to decide if the application should proceed to a council meeting for a final decision. Council meeting would then occur for a decision. If approved, a notice of decision would be given starting a 20-day appeal period. Final step in the development process for this application would be a site plan approval application. Just for clarification on third-party appeals, there have been changes to the Planning Act for appeal rights of residents. Through Bill 23, through the More Homes Built Faster Act, only specified persons and specified bodies, as defined under the Planning Act, have appeal rights for OPA and zoning bylaw amendment applications. And just for clarity on this, specified persons includes but is not limited to entities such as utility providers, airports, aggregate companies that the Planning Act may individually name or categorize. Public bodies or government or public agencies, including municipalities, local boards, hospitals, provincial and federal bodies, as well as First Nations. And I've included some visuals here. I just like to include visuals in my presentations because they serve as a tool for discussion. Sean did a great job at describing urban design considerations in the build form, so I won't get into that, but we have them here if we would like to take a look and discuss. With all that said, Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I'm going to open up to council now. Does council have any questions? Mayor Elena.
Thank you very much for that presentation, and thank you for being preemptive around defining what significant persons and bodies are, because that's a question that comes up. And also, in terms of the timelines that we have in front of us for this project, it's just following all the prescribed timelines. It's not shorter, it's not longer, it's exactly how we go about every single application. Can you just confirm that?
Yes, there are prescribed timelines as per the Planning Act.
Okay. Thank you. So one point that I did want some clarification on is on the presentation and in the report, under the north-south environmental assessment around the significant woodlands, in the actual report that we read and on the slides, it did say that they are, and you said in your presentation, they may be. So could you please clarify for us, is it that they are, or they may be, or is it yet to be determined?
So the way significant woodlands are determined is Northumberland County has recently updated their official plan, so there's a little bit of an indiscrepancy on how they're defined. So if I recall correctly, the Port Hope official plan defines significant woodlands, or not just for this reason, but any woodland that straddles a watercourse would be considered significant. And if I recall correctly, Northumberland County's official plan states that any woodland that is 4 hectares or greater would be considered a significant woodland. So the peer reviewer has identified that the woodlands existing on the subject property does meet that criteria. Therefore, it is considered significant woodland. However, I'm not an expert in natural sciences or background in with significant woodlands, but I do believe that Cambium would have, or the author of the natural heritage evaluation would have the opportunity to address that comment, and it would be determined through Cambium and our peer reviewer, North South Environmental, if those are considered significant woodlands or not. And if they are, we need to demonstrate that there's no negative impact on those woodlands as per the provincial planning statement as well as official plans.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councillor Clare?
Curious more broadly, but also obviously it's relevant to this discussion tonight. In the official plan, I understand the provision for low-rise apartments in that medium designation, but I could not find a definition for low-rise in our official plan. So I'm curious to know what is the standard that we use for determining what is low-rise or not here in Port Hope.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, that's a good point. There is no definition what we consider low-rise. However, staff did struggle with applying low-rise apartments to a 6-story apartment building. When I think of low-rise personally, I think of something that's 2 to 3 stories, maybe 4 stories in height. When we're getting the 5-6-story benchmark, I personally believe, it's my opinion, that we're getting something that's beyond low-rise. And for that reason, we have determined that an official plan amendment would be required because it's not low-rise, and we would need that site-specific policy to address that.
I also have a question about the traffic and the extension of Croft Street and how that connects to overall planning around Croft Street more generally. I understand there is a road allowance that connects right to the other side of Croft Street and out to Ontario at that very awkward intersection. We're all aware, we've had a presentation already from a developer who we know at some point is going to be seeking to develop the MTO lands on the other side of Ontario. So when we're looking at these individual planning applications, can somebody speak to sort of how we internally consider those broader implications and how they connect together and how that might influence our planning from an engineering and traffic perspective?
So through the chair, we have considered the broader planning perspective through our development charge study. So Croft Street extension is included in our development charge study. We are planning to extend Croft Street. However, there are also upgrades that are required at the intersection of Ontario and Walton. Or sorry, not Walton, but apologies. Is that better? So at the intersection of Ontario and Croft Street, that is also a development charge project, and there are a number of upgrades that are required at that intersection prior to extending Croft Street. So we actually can't extend Croft Street at this time as part of this development without the work on Ontario Street occurring first.
Just as a follow-up, my understanding is sort of where Croft Street is currently, there's like the official road that looks to be maintained, like it's an official road, and then there's the unpaved used road that's not, doesn't look like it's currently official. Would the extension of Croft Street that would take place to facilitate this development, would that include the entire portion that's currently being used by residents that's not paved or intended for use right now?
So when the original site plan application was approved, there was a requirement for a 4-meter wide emergency access path that was to be paved and gated. So that way there was not to be access from the public using that path. It was only to be opened in the event of an emergency. The developer has requested an extension to completing that path in light of the extension of the road. It does not make sense to pave an access path when there is a plan to extend the road. So yes, the extension of the road would cover that access path and provide additional entrances to the Croft Street Garden Home.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, moving on. Thank you for your presentation. So moving on to 4.3, submissions from members of the public. So before we begin submissions from the public, I would like to note that the staff report outlines the rules of the Planning Act that impact the public's ability to appeal a decision on zoning bylaw amendment applications to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Only the applicant, a specified person as defined by the Planning Act, a public body as defined by the Planning Act, and a registered owner of the land to which the bylaw would apply has the ability to appeal the eventual decision of the municipality of Port Hope to the Ontario Land Tribunal. This means that residents' appeal rights for zoning bylaw amendments have been removed by the province. Members of the public may provide comments or questions related to this application tonight or any time prior to a decision being made by council. Please email planning@porthope.ca to provide your comments to staff if you do not provide them tonight. All those who wish to speak to this matter tonight should approach the microphone and clearly state your name and your address for record, please. I also want to remind those of you in attendance, but especially those looking to speak this evening, please ensure that you have completed the sign-in sheet near the entrance before you leave. The sheet assists municipal staff as it provides a record of attendance and contact information if a copy of the notice of decision is requested. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to members of the public to come up to the microphone. And please remember to state your name and your address, please.
Good evening. My name is Wilfred Day, and my wife and I reside at Unit 2404, 300 Croft Street, which is one of the Croft Garden homes immediately north of the development. My first, and I think probably major concern, is the traffic study, which was submitted by the applicant as part of their application. As has been mentioned earlier, as of October 2024, all comments had been received, and at that point, the Ministry of Transportation had no comments as of October 17th, 2024. That's in the materials that you have before you. Of course, since then, the ministry has begun work on the new interchange for 401 and Ontario Street, which is a major change because of the 401 being widened and a new bridge being built, a new interchange being built. And that definitely affects this development. The ministry doesn't see that they have any need to comment on our development, but I think we have to look at what the ministry is doing, because we are assuming that this development has arterial road access up Roseglen and over to Ontario Street and indeed to the 401. But the current preferred option of the ministry, and Jeanette Davidson already advised me that you have been in touch with the ministry about that, but at this point, their preferred alternative is something that I referred to in the material, the letter that I sent you, which means that Roseglen will not continue over to Ontario Street because the new exit from the 401 and entrance through the 401 will come straight around into Ontario Street and will cut off the access from Roseglen. So that's fine, because we also come down Phillips Road and across Phillips Road to get to Ontario Street, which is fine. Except that the ministry's preferred alternative also puts a cul-de-sac in Phillips Road right at the commercial use at that location, Arby's. So Phillips Road will have a cul-de-sac at Arby's, and if you're coming from up Roseglen, you're supposed to turn down Wellington, keep on going past, and end up coming down Rosevear. I don't think the Ministry of Transport has really planned on Rosevear becoming an arterial road. It doesn't look as though anybody has been thinking about that. And I hope that the ministry will reconsider their proposal, their preferred alternative. But at this point, they have not. And so I think that that is a problem. And I'm looking forward to finding out whether the ministry will revise their preferred alternative. I have written to them. Jeanette Davidson has written to them. I'm waiting for an answer. So is Jeanette Davidson. We don't know. So at this point, we have a problem. So that's my first concern. And perhaps my only concern, because I'm also interested in the whole planning of the Croft Street extension. And I saw a few minutes ago that there is a plan of the connection between Croft Street, Old Croft Street and New Croft Street. If you could possibly bring that screen back up. You had it a minute ago when you ran past the other screens, and you got down to that one at the end, and you were asked to, there you go. So this is a handy way of showing you what is happening to the connection between New Croft Street and Old Croft Street. If you look at the cul-de-sac on the right-hand side of that plan, that's the cul-de-sac at the front of the new apartment building, and that's where New Croft Street will end. And you will see that there is a connection, not yet built, that runs across to Old Croft Street. Right now, of course, that connection is the pathway that students go to get to Beatrice Strong School. That pathway has been there ever since we built Beatrice Strong School, and I say we because I was one of Port Hope's trustees when we built Beatrice Strong School. And so that pathway was put in there so that students could get from the whole area west of TCS to Beatrice Strong School by that pathway. So that pathway is still there, and you'll see a little area there with red something, and I think that is going to be a water main connection. I believe the municipality engineering department has asked for the water main from New Croft Street to be connected to the water main on Old Croft Street, and I believe that will be done. So that shows planning so far on the connection from New Croft to Old Croft. Now, why that's interesting is because the whole business of a Croft Street extension is a very long established objective. It actually goes back 50 years to when Mike Ladika was very interested in the Croft Street extension, and the town built Croft Street from Rose Glen over to Boundary Road as part of Port Hope's new, at the time, industrial park. So Croft Street has always been, in the last 50 years, a plan. So you might think, and I originally thought, this is the time to finish building Croft Street so that the traffic can go all the way from Croft Gardens and the new Croft development all the way out to Ontario Street. But I'm told that it's not as simple as that, because the whole planning for the Croft Street extension has really not yet been done, and how it will intersect Ontario and whether you need to revise the intersection of Croft and Ontario, which is a tricky intersection because it's right where Hope Street North joins into Ontario Street. I can see where that needs to be given some thought. I'm just mentioning all this because I think from a point of view of council, you want to keep your eye on this whole question of the Croft Street extension, not postpone it indefinitely. There needs to be some planning go into that. That Croft Street extension is well overdue to be finished. That's the only point I wanted to make on that. The other point I want to make is simply the fact that groundwater in this area is a long-standing problem. And I mentioned in my letter that I think councillors have that when we built Beatrice Strong School, we thought that the groundwater was not what it was. We had to abandon our plan to have a groundwater heat source, groundwater heat and air conditioning source pump. And so to this day, you will see that Beatrice Strong School has vents on the roof for the heating and air conditioning system. And that's because the groundwater turned out to be not what we had originally thought. So when I see people commenting that they want to keep their eye on the groundwater in this area, I couldn't agree more. Right now, there's a bit of a pond there, and runoff from Croft Garden Homes runs into that pond, runs out into the ditch in the old railway line, runs under Rose Glen, and if you look, you will see there's a ditch running east from Rose Glen, just south of the subdivision. And it's not much of a ditch. It doesn't have much flow. But with this new development, you're going to have more runoff because you're paving and building on some of the area that is potentially subject to groundwater issues. And so you're going to have a bigger drainage pond. That's fine. But then you're going to have a bigger runoff from that drainage pond. And so everybody commenting on this says that that's an area that you need to keep a watch on, and I agree. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Day. Appreciate the comments and also the little bit of history there, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Just please come up to the microphone and just a reminder, name and address, too, please.
My name is Bill Conley, and I'm the Executive Director of the school. I have a few comments and questions. We will respond in writing as well. But I also shared the same concerns about water management on and near the site. When talking about, and this is future, when talking about having stormwater connect from Croft to Croft, does that allowance will it take into account the fact that there is none on DeBlaker right now? We have flooding, our ditches overflow constantly. We did do some work, or the town did some work on the west side of the street to get water to flow towards Croft. On the east side of the street, we have flooding onto our property constantly from DeBlaker. So I'm hoping that there is a plan to collect all of that water at Croft down the road. It has been an issue for us. I also wanted to talk a little bit about that rechannelized water and how it showed on the plan and the impact, if any, it would have on the school side of that property line. It looks like it runs right down that point, and how much of that cover will be gone as a result of that. I don't know that it affects our property directly, but it would affect, I don't know for sure because I haven't seen any details on it, but I did have a comment on that. The chimney swifts that you talk about in the report are actually in Molden House, which is on the corner of Croft and DeBlaker. The MNR knows they're there. We're not allowed to do anything to affect their habitat. And so I'm just hoping that they are considered in this overall plan. But they do have a home, and it's very close to this site. And they do forage for food constantly. They also mentioned 4 other species, but we constantly see coyotes, foxes, rabbits, deer, owls, hawks, and they come out of that significant woodlands. I've got them on film. I've got them, like, they're all over the place. We get complaints all the time from kids that there's coyotes running around the campus and all that. And again, they're also protected. So, but I just wanted to make that point that we have seen more species around than just that. I'm not counting Canada geese or seagulls. I don't think anybody does. Also want to make people aware that our sports fields are right behind that condo. So be prepared. It is a boarding school, so there will be noise there on weekends. From September to June, we even have day camp there. So there will be noise. And we've heard complaints from the apartments on Rose Glen about noise from us. So it's just, that is there. We do respect the 7 to 7 kind of bylaw. Certainly with construction, but also trying to keep the kids quiet. But they are kids, and they're there all the time. So that is another one. The other concern about not just Croft coming through to Croft is the amount of traffic by the junior school. We don't have any fencing. Beatrice Strong does on the property line with us, but there's nothing behind that condo, all the way out to the old Croft, we'll call it. So that's a concern because we think people will walk out of their condo and right onto the playing fields with their dogs and whatever they have, right? It happens now with the public. It is private property. We have signs. We are fine with people that have their dogs on a leash and they walk them and pick up after themselves. But this is a lot more density. This is a lot more people. So we may have to put fencing up. Somebody may have to put fencing up to kind of create that barrier and to keep that from happening. And it's the same with the junior school. We have parking there. If that opens up, or even if it doesn't, I know there will be people that will try to park there. If the visitor parking's full at this condominium, they're going to go to Bolden House or could go to Bolden House. And so that would mean we'll need to put in gates and more restrictive measures to control that. And we will probably have to put fencing up around Bolden House itself because that's our grade 5 to grade 8 students. So I have other concerns, but I'm not going to dominate all the time here, but we will also respond in writing. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other members of the public? And again, just a reminder, name and address as you come up.
Yep. My name's Pat Spalding. I live at 300 Croft Street, Unit 3203, in the municipality of Port Hope. As a fairly early resident of the community, I've watched the rest of the development grow. And I see the state it is in now. It has not been totally completed to our satisfaction and to the original plan. There was a plan at the west end that was supposed to exit out of our community out onto Croft Street. It was never completed. There was an emergency exit put in halfway between that one and Rose, or onto Croft Street, closer to the end of Rose Glen. That was put in because fire trucks couldn't move around and back out. They had to back out if they had to get into a unit further down. So it was put in under the pretext that it would be an emergency exit. It was used by construction vehicles while the west end of our community was being completed. That entrance, which is, quotes, an emergency exit, and the original exit, which they've never been completed. They're just dirt tracks right up to both entrances. I think as members of our community continue to want to walk in that area, the fact that they haven't been completed, we would like to hope and pray that they could be completed by the applicant that had that community built, that it be completed before they continue on doing other stuff to Croft Street, number one. We have, one of members in our community has done a rough calculation, and with the, I believe it is, 34, 140 units, I think we are at Croft Street. We pay over $500,000 in taxes, and we do not have snow shoveling. We do not have garbage collection. We do not have a lot of the things that the regular residents in Port Hope have. So for that plus $500,000, we would like to see those entrances finished, because we're not asking the town to do anything else. We're not asking the applicant to do anything else. Please finish our community before he goes ahead and starts a new one in the same area. The other note I wanted to make was the comment that you made that there was a sign posted about the meeting, about the rezoning, was put halfway down one of these dirt tracks so that the majority of people who live in our community never even saw the notice. How did we know that this meeting was going to take place? Some very observant members of our community saw it, contacted our property management company, who in fact then sent out a notice to us yesterday. So we had no previous notice, general notice, and easy to access notice of this meeting and for what this meeting was about. What we've seen, as far as I'm concerned, it's a beautiful approach. The groundwater, again, I agree, is a huge issue. We are finding at 300 Croft Gardens that we do have groundwater problems. There's a couple of areas on the property where the groundwater is quite noticeable, and in the cold weather it starts to freeze and becomes a security problem. Somebody can slip and fall if they're walking down to certain areas. We are going to have to pay to have it re-landscaped, even though there was a study done about the groundwater. It was not constructed to accommodate the flow of the groundwater, which now goes out to, as you said, goes out to Croft Street and down to the gully. So although there's been studies done on the north side of Croft, it is going to impact the south side of Croft. And what is said and what actually happens are not always the same thing. And I'd just like to put that to council, that what has been prepared and presented may not actually turn out to be fact. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. No. We actually hold applause in the council chambers. Any other members of the public to come up? And of course, your name and your address when you come up.
Pardon me? Tell me, say my name. Jan Steffoff, 58 to Blaker Street North. I agree with everything that's been said. I live in, obviously, right, very close to where this development would be. And my first reaction when I saw the sign was, we have no sidewalks in this area. We have 2 schools and a whole whack of seniors, and we have no sidewalks. And suddenly you're adding 108 living units. I feel it's the densification is coming. It's the horse before the cart, or the cart before the horse, because until you make it a safe environment, I don't know that you should be adding more bodies to the mix. I'm terrified already walking at night. I wear flashing lights and everything. I can't even imagine. And the kids, you know, the teenagers from Trinity, they come and hang out. It's not safe the way it is right now. Please don't add 108 units until our whole community, and that includes the condos, make it safe. They don't have sidewalks either. So I'm just saying that's just another little, otherwise, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Al Wilson, 300 Croft, 2303. I was confused with some of the maps. What is going to happen with Croft Street? When it gets to the apartment, is it a dead end? Is it going to stay as a dead end until something is figured out? Because that's going to create a tremendous amount of traffic, especially on a night when there's 2 ball games going on, kids in the splash pad, kids in the playground. It's just going to be chaos.
Appreciate that. And I'm going to ask the Director of Works and Engineering to answer that question.
As part of this development application, the new Croft Street would end with a cul-de-sac. It would not carry through to the old Croft Street at this time.
So a cul-de-sac is,
Turn
you're in
around.
and out
It's a dead end,
in and out the same way.
correct.
So did that come into the traffic study, that the traffic's going, it's all the same cars going back and forth? yeah?
Yes, correct.
And that wasn't an issue?
No, it was-
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public?
Thank you. Keith McRae, 300 Croft, Unit 1501. Thank you to everybody for their presentations. 2 brief comments. One is I support my fellow residents and everything they said, so I won't repeat it, but I will be communicating through the planning website. The density side of things, the height of the buildings, when we first were looking to move there, we were told by the owner in the sales process it was going to be a lovely low-rise 3 stories. It's going to have this, and we thought it would really fit into our community nicely. And I didn't have any reason to object. And I thought, if anything, it would probably add to the community if it was within a density that made sense for our community. The other thing I would add from a traffic study perspective, that with the advent of Amazon and so forth, I would suggest to you that in 300 Croft, there was between 50 and 60 traversing trucks throughout our community. You add another 108 units, what is that going to do to the traffic on that street? We can study the traffic about residents and the way they move around, and that's one element. The other element is pure commercial traffic. These are trucks, they're moving fast. We have a speeding problem in our community, sometimes with residents, a lot with visitors, but I'm telling you, the scourge is delivery trucks. And I use Uber, I have no problem, or Amazon, pardon me, I have no problem with the services, But we need to really keep an eye on that kind of thing because those people don't live in the community. They drive it and they're paid on speed of delivery. And there's a lot of them. So anyways, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? I am seeing none. So, moving on, this does conclude our public meeting for tonight. I'm just going to remind residents to return the assisted listening devices if you did use one tonight. And I am now in a position to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.